US President Donald Trump did the traditional turkey pardon this week and has gotten a lot of Christians anxious.
We have more people praying. The churches are coming back. Religion is coming back to America.
Trump spoke favorably about religion coming back to America. And some Christians feel that this is fulfilling Bible prophecy that speaks about combining of church and government right before the end of the world. I completely disagree. I think that Trump's comments are a positive message to America and to the world. In this video, we'll look at Trump's comments, we'll look at the prophecies, and we will look at why religion coming back to America is something that should make Christians happy. My name is Shanley. This is Rain and Roots. So let's look at the prophecies that speak about the combination of church and government leading to the end of the world. The prophecy in question, or that specifically refers to this, is in Revelation chapter 13. Revelation 13 speaks about two beasts and a dragon. Now we know who the dragon is. The dragon is Satan. Revelation 12 verse 9 tells us about this great dragon that was cast out and specifically says that this great dragon is Satan. And so we know then the dragon spoken of in Revelation 13 refers to Satan. Now, who are the other beasts? Well, the first beast, Revelation 13 tells us that this first beast receives power from the dragon or power from Satan. Revelation 13 verse 4 says, and they worshipped the dragon, right? That is Satan, which gave power unto the beast. So the dragon gives power to the beast. This dragon is the Antichrist. It's the beast whose mark we don't want to receive. At the end of Revelation 13, there's reference made to this number 666. And we know that it's a mark that we don't want to receive, this mark of this beast. Now, if we dig deeper and we do a further study of this, we'll actually find that this beast refers to the Roman Catholic Church or Roman Catholicism. Not Roman Catholics, but the system of Roman Catholicism. This system of Roman Catholicism was set up essentially to replace Christ, to replace his ministry. That's why you have a confessional. You have worship of saints. You have things like the Eucharist, where you have bread and wine being converted into the blood and body of Jesus. So there's this entire system that's been set up to replace the ministry of Jesus Christ himself. And again, there's not a lot of time to go into more detail about that here. If we want to go into more detail about this or on this topic, please, you're certainly welcome to join our Discord server. But suffice it to say that it's these combinations of Roman paganism and parts of Christianity that has been pulled together into what we know now, into what we now know as Roman Catholicism. And if you look at all the Protestant believers, if you look at all the Protestant leaders, Martin Luther, John Wesley, John Calvin, all of these guys believed and preached, they taught and they showed from Scripture that the Roman Catholic Church was actually the Antichrist and specifically this beast spoken of in Revelation 13. So who is the second beast then? Well, the second beast, again, if we do a deep study of this, we'll find that the second beast represents the United States of America. And again, for this as well, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. If you want to go into more detail on that topic, you can certainly join the Discord server where we can discuss that. But I will give you a few pointers here as well. This beast, we know, the Bible tells us that a beast represents a nation or a kingdom. And this beast also, the Bible tells us, Revelation 13 tells us that this beast rises out of the land as opposed to other beasts that rise out of water. We understand that water represents a large population of people. And since this beast rises up out of the earth or the land, this beast or this kingdom arises from a place that is not highly populated. And so this is essentially, if you look at these marks, also if you look at the time in history, if you look at this passage and other passages that describe this beast, you will find the time at which this beast arrives on the scene perfectly matches when America, the United States of America, arrived on the scene of history. So again, there are other signs as well, specifically that show that this beast represents America. And again, you're welcome to engage more on that with on Discord. But what's important here is that this second beast makes an image to the first beast. And we can see that. We will look at verse 14. It says, "And deceives them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause, that is, that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed." What is an image to the beast? An image to the beast is essentially a law or a system that commands worship or commands gives a command or instruction that goes against God's word. It's a law that goes against the law of God that people are forced into obeying under threat of civil punishment. And you see that in this case, the civil punishment is specifically death. Where do we get this idea? We get this idea from Daniel chapter 3. In Daniel 3, we find King Nebuchadnezzar, who is the king of Babylon. Babylon itself also is symbolized by a beast in other parts of the Bible. King Nebuchadnezzar makes an image, makes a statue of gold, and commands this image to be worshipped. He commands all of his people within Babylon to worship this image under threat of civil punishment. The civil punishment there also is death. He tells them that if you don't worship this image, if you don't bow down, when the music plays, if you don't bow down and worship this image, you will be thrown into a furnace. And so in the story, what happens is we have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They know that this command clearly goes against the law of God, which teaches us not to obey or not to worship idols or statues or graven images. And so because of that, they do not bow down when the music plays. And as a result of them not bowing down, Nebuchadnezzar then throws them into a fire. Jesus saves them from that fire. And, as a result of this also, Nebuchadnezzar, he has a bit of a change of heart and has more respect for the God of heaven. But the idea here is that an image to the beast, an image is a law, a command that goes against the law of God, and people are forced into obeying that law under threat of punishment by a government. This is what we saw with Babylon and the people of Babylon, and then the Israelites who were captive in Babylon at the time. And so the second beast making an image and causing everyone to worship it would then translate to the US, the United States, being the second beast, establishing a law that goes against God's law and then requiring everyone to obey that law under threat of civil punishment. It could be imprisonment or it could even be death. Now, the US Constitution actually protects against this actually happening. The U.S. Constitution actually protects against this occurring. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. In other words, the U.S. government has set up the Constitution in such a way that allows everyone to have freedom of religion. So, in the case of Nebuchadnezzar, where Nebuchadnezzar said that you shall bow down and worship this image, if you do not, you will be thrown into a fire. Nebuchadnezzar saying something like that would go against the U.S. Constitution. And so therefore, in the U.S., it's very difficult to, just about impossible for the U.S., for any leader to make a law like that requires people to perform an act of worship that goes against their personal beliefs or their own religion. So Yeah, so there's a lot of steps required before a law can actually be made that goes against the US Constitution. And as I mentioned earlier, I disagree with the idea that religion coming back to America is a bad thing. I actually think that it's a good thing. What does it mean? It means that there's actually an increase in morality in the US. And this is what Trump said. He said that people are praying more, people are going to church more. And he said religion is coming back to America. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of America, said that only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. America was founded by people who had a high degree of morality. These were people who believed in God, and they believed in the Bible, and they subscribed to the morals of the Bible. And when they put together the Constitution, they understood the importance of religion, the importance of people being free to exercise religion. Because if people were free to exercise religion, that meant that they could fully exercise morality. They could be a moral people. They could be better people. Religion is important in a society because religion increases the level of morality. And the less religion there is in a society, the more a society declines in morals. And if you look at what Benjamin Franklin is saying here, he's saying that as nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. If you think about a situation where, if you think about something like prostitution, prostitution is something that's practiced by people who are lower on the scale of morality. Now, on the higher scale of morality, when there's no prostitution practiced, there is no need for any laws around prostitution. But as people become more immoral, their prostitution might arise, and then as a result of it, you now need more regulation to limit or to dictate or restrict how prostitution takes place, under what circumstances, how much do you pay these people? Is it legal? Is it not? What happens to somebody who pays a prostitute? So more laws, more masters, as Benjamin Franklin says, more masters, more laws are required when people are less moral. And so religion is important in a society because religion makes people more free. If you exercise if you are more in tune with your conscience and you follow the dictates of your conscience, you are more likely to be a free person. And so religion coming back to America is indicative of an increase in freedom and not an increase in restriction, to the point where it's, we're violating the Constitution and conscience. And so religion coming back to America is indicative of increased freedom and not an increase in restriction. It means that society as a whole is becoming better. And if society as a whole is becoming better, that means that less restriction is required and less masters are required, as Benjamin Franklin put it. Again, religion coming back to America points in the direction of more freedom and not restrictions. But how then do we see this taking place? How do we see then the US getting to a point where a leader makes a law that actually violates the US Constitution and as a result also violates people's conscience? Maybe the other way around. A leader making a law that violates people's conscience, violates their freedom to exercise their religion, and as a result also is violating the US Constitution. It's usually in times of a crisis when we see such restrictions taking place or being put into place. If you think about the COVID pandemic and you think about the restrictions that were placed upon people at that time, that should show you how a crisis can make leaders put laws in place that violate people's conscience and even get to the point where they violate or as a result of it, violate the US Constitution. And just to add, those restrictions that we saw during the time of the COVID pandemic actually came more strongly from the political left than they came from the political right. And so the way I see this taking place is that there might be a crisis one day, just like the COVID pandemic. There might be a crisis one day. And as a result of it, and in reaction to this crisis, there may be laws put in place that violate our conscience, that go against people's right to exercise their religion freely. And this crisis will give boldness to a law that actually goes against the US Constitution. So, in summary, then, more religion, more praying, more morality is a good thing for America. Why? Because it means that there is an increase in general morality within the society, and it means that it's indicative of greater freedom within society, or it means that there'd be less restrictions imposed on society than the opposite. What Trump said and religion coming back to America doesn't violate the conscience or doesn't violate the Constitution. It's a good thing. But also what this should tell us is that we should always be prepared. An image to the beast could happen very quickly, just like we saw with COVID. A crisis could happen very quickly, and before you know it, we're under a lot of restrictions that violate our conscience and violate the Constitution. I'm Shanley. This is Rain and Roots. I hope you like, share, comment, and subscribe.